He didn't ask for power. He just wished the people he loved would be happy. Instead, he got a useless skill called clockmaster. Fired from his job, framed by the powerful, abandoned by his own family. They threw him into the deepest dungeon and forgot he existed. But down there, surrounded by monsters and betrayal, he realized something terrifying. Time isn't abstract. It's inside your veins, and when he stops the hands, you stop too. And now, it's his turn. The story begins with the MC, who was in a dark cave, thinking that a plan for revenge was brewing in the depths of hell. He felt like he couldn't escape this labyrinth, and that only death would free him. Everyone called him incompetent, until this power awakened within him. With his skill, he will rebuild the entire world that had gone against him. Before that, he was sitting in the workshop, and said that he was working on this today. And at first glance, everything seemed fine. He used the skill clock analysis and thought, okay, the gears in the back are a little misaligned and bent. It could be fixed by simply replacing the parts. Pneumatic clocks are generally prone to breakage, even if the parts are replaced. These few parts need to be replaced. He was doing his work with a happy expression on his face, but a guy entered his office, called out to Cyclo Owen, and said that the guild leader was calling him. He became a little nervous, looking at him, and loudly asked, "Is he at least alive?" Suddenly, he stood up abruptly and said loudly that it was a pneumatic clock with a pendulum that moved only due to the movement of air. He had only seen things like this in books, but now he could touch it himself. The guy asked if he had finished repairing it. He agreed and said that it was working now. He used the stop clock skill and said that these clocks easily break when subjected to vibrations, so it was better to fix it in this position. The guy remembered that earlier the customer had said that the workers had been unable to fix it, so now it was their turn. He said that they hadn't succeeded, so they decided to give it to him. Who would have thought that he was so good? He laughed and said that this was all he had always been good at. He thought that he had gotten the watchmaker skill. He came to the boss's office and asked what he wanted to talk about. The old man immediately called him by name and said that he was fired. He was very surprised by what he heard and loudly asked why he wanted to fire him. He asked what he thought. He doesn't need incompetent employees. He said loudly that, however, he had repaired the old clock in the guild with his own hands. He said that they were giving his workplace to a more promising artisan. Besides, unlike him, his son could fix anything. He was useless because he only fixes watches and nothing more. He should stop taking the place of a worthy artisan. He should leave his guild immediately. He was kicked out of the building, and the protagonist said loudly that he should weigh the pros and cons and think again. The boss didn't listen to him, so he walked down the street and asked what to do now. He looked at the landscape and said that everything was going so well. He thought that the craft had fascinated him since early childhood. Everyone around praised him when he worked with magical tools. His mother was always happy and always hung clothes out to dry right before the rain, so he made a powder compact that showed the weather. People were surprised by what he created and said that he was a real genius. In the future, he would give his daughter in marriage to him and help them open their own business. She is sure that her son is the best option. He thought that his whole life was going great, but then the gears of his life broke. 2 years ago, his sister, Alice, pulled him by the hand and said that they should go faster. He said that she shouldn't hurry so much. Maria doesn't have time. She didn't pay attention to it and asked, "So what?" She followed them with a smile and asked, "I wonder when they have a daughter. Will she be as energetic?" He turned to her embarrassedly and asked, "What was she saying?" She asked, "What's wrong with that if she is his fiancée?" He said that, however, their parents decided for them when they were only 10 years old. She asked, "Does he really not love her?" He said in an embarrassed voice that that's not what he meant. Alice was dissatisfied with their behavior, took them by the hands, and began to pull them along. They came to the church, and she, with a joyful expression on her face, said that the skill acquisition ceremony would begin very soon. He thought that in their kingdom of Heinberg, when a person turns 16, he must come to the skill acquisition ceremony. They went inside, and Maria said with surprise that there were so many people here. She walked next to her and said that the real big shots of their country had come to watch. MC said that he would look around for now. He thought that although everything was visible from here, by praying in front of the crystal, people will recognize their skill. What is said in the crystal can no longer be changed. Maria went to the crystal and said that she would go first. He waved his hand and wished her luck. She approached the crystal, began to pray, and the entire hall was illuminated by bright energy. The priest was very surprised by what he saw and loudly asked, "Has a saint really appeared?" Alice called her brother and asked, "Saint, this is one of the best skills, right? It's so rare that no one has gotten one for decades." He thought that skills are divided into 2 types, professional and ordinary. Regular skills enhance only one characteristic, while professional skills enhance several characteristics at once. According to the law of the country, people with professional skills are obliged to follow the path destined for them. Skill is a very important thing for their kingdom. Skill is their destiny. She will be a saint. He shouldn't lose to her. Alice noticed that he was nervous and asked if he didn't want to go yet. He said that he needed to prepare himself mentally. She said that then he would go now. However, he shouldn't think anything of it. She was not going for his sake. It was all because she wanted to go first. He said with a smile that he understood her. He put his hand on her shoulder and said that he believed in her. She walked forward with a little embarrassment and thought that she shouldn't be worse than her. She approached the crystal, began to pray, and the hall was again illuminated by a very bright energy. The priest was very surprised by what he saw and asked loudly, "Is she a sage?" The people in the hall said in surprise and loudly that the ceremony today was amazing. She also wants to gain a similar skill. What does this mean? It looks like she can use high magic and alchemy, a powerful skill. Cyclo plucked up his resolve, went to the crystal, and thought that he hoped that he too would be given a special skill like theirs. He began to pray. And at that moment, an even brighter flash of energy illuminated the hall. He found himself in a bright space and saw a man in front of him who called him and asked why he needed a unique skill. With a joyful expression on his face, he said that he wanted his family and those around him to be happy. Immediately after that, he heard the surprised voice of the priest, who loudly said that he was seeing something like this for the first time. He came to his senses and wondered what he had just seen. Although that doesn't matter now, he asked in an excited tone, "What is that skill?" The priest began to flip through the pages of the book and said that his skill was watchmaker. He thought that he was hearing about something like this for the first time. Is that a professional skill? The other people also didn't know what this skill was and said that it didn't seem like anything special. It seemed to him that something cool happened again when the crystal began to shine like that. The priest said that this is what is written in their scriptures. When God created the world, he sang a song, and in memory of this song, the clock tower was erected. A watchmaker is the one who must maintain this clock tower. People loudly said that it sounded interesting. He is the only one with such a skill. Amazing, he has a unique skill. Cyclo thought that people weren't particularly happy about such a skill, and the wedding was cancelled. Maria's father said that his daughter could not marry an ordinary clockmaker. She asked for forgiveness with an upset look and said that the church was also against it. They were standing outside her house. She said that she was truly very sorry. He took her hands and said that there was nothing to be done about it. She had become a saint after all, but he would not give up. He would become the greatest watchmaker. Everyone in the world would respect him. And then he would come back for her. She smiled and said that she would wait for him. He thought that Alice had an easy career as an adventurer. In winter, she dressed warmly and said goodbye to him and her mother. She came up to her and, with a sad expression, said that she should remember that she could always return home. He looked at her with a smile and said that she was full of energy. She should remember that in difficult times he was always ready to help her. She took her suitcase, went to the exit, and said that she could cope without his help. He was a little upset by her words and said that he also needed to keep up with them. Mom called him and asked if he had already got a job at the Artisans Guild. He agreed and said that he would start working tomorrow. She said that it's wonderful news. She would cook his favorite dish for dinner. After that, he thought his employer disliked him. However, there were those who liked his work. A nobleman came to him and said that it seemed he had found his place. It's a shame. If it weren't for this skill, he would have become an excellent master of magical instruments. He apologizes and hopes that it didn't offend him. He thought that the watchmaker allowed him to do everything that even slightly related to watches. Analysis allows you to fully understand the state of a watch. Stopping stops the watch, even if the mechanism is working. Creation allows you to create a watch that will disappear after a while. Storage stores watch parts in a separate space to which he always has access. Sensation allows you to find out a person's position by their watch. However, that's all. Maria and Alice moved on, and he was stuck in one place. If he hadn't become a watchmaker then, everything would have turned out differently. This thought torments him every day. He was walking through the rainy city and heard the girls ask, had she heard that a maniac appeared in their city? It's so scary. They say that he may be connected to the police. The protagonist wondered if there really were people who stooped to such things. However, what difference did it make to him? He entered the house. A woman named Miranda noticed him and greeted him. She went to him and said that he was soaking wet. He should undress. She would wash his clothes right away. He refused and said that he would do everything himself. She brought him a mug of a warm drink. He thanked her and thought that she was their neighbor. She had periodically looked after them since childhood. Recently, she has been constantly taking care of him because his mother ran off to find her love. This mug caught his attention. She noticed it and said that she bought it at the store. Did he have a fight with someone in the guild? He said with an upset expression that this was not entirely true. She said with a kind smile that she was sure that there was something in this world that only he was capable of. He was very touched by her words and said that for some reason this tea was salty. After some time, he was walking down the street with groceries and thought that this seemed to be all she asked him to buy. Thanks to Miranda, he's feeling better. Now he needs to figure out where to get a job. Maybe he should ask some familiar clients to talk to the boss. Although it's unlikely, they won't even let them see the boss. The man next to him asked who they were going to attack today. This caught MC's attention and he wondered if this man was somehow connected to the maniac. He used his watch detection skill and thought there were two of them. The two men said that their target today was a pharmacy in the very center of a residential area. They would break in and attack the local owner. Will they get rid of prying eyes like before? He had already brought him money. He can't screw up. He shouldn't worry, because he was already experienced. By the way, what kind of pharmacy was that? He began to analyze their words, and one of them said that it was Miranda's pharmacy. The local owner was insanely beautiful. He was very angry because of what he heard and thought that he should beat these bastards right now. Although no, he needs to calm down. The men said that, however, there are a lot of people there. He shouldn't be afraid, because he has his own ways, because he works for the police. Ciclo was very worried about this, and thought that this bastard should protect people. He doesn't even know what to do now. He was going to leave, but he kicked a bucket and it fell with a loud sound. They immediately noticed it. A policeman went to him and asked if he needed something. He fell to the ground and said in a frightened tone that he heard their conversation. He said that indeed, he was conducting an interrogation here. However, what is he doing here at such a late hour? He got very scared because of this, started to run away, and the bandit asked if he should catch up with him. He refused, and said that he was sure that it was the guy from that pharmacy. After some time, he ran to the police station and said loudly that he asked them to believe him. The policeman asked if he was absolutely sure of what he saw. He agreed and said that a police officer had said that. He said that it was for the record. What is his place of work? He was a little confused by this and said that he was currently unemployed. Before that, he worked in the Artisans Guild, but he was fired. They asked how it was possible to lose a job when he had a professional skill. He was very nervous about this and thought that now he looked suspicious. In this kingdom, everyone with a professional skill works, unless they are a problematic individual. He said in a confused tone that he just wanted to warn them, and now he would go. He started to leave and thought that they didn't believe him. He would have to take matters into his own hands. He would not let their plan work. He would catch them himself and make a noise to attract attention. He had no work, but he was brave. He hid near the pharmacy, used the skill, and thought he was coming. Judging by the watch, it was that police officer. He knocked on the door, started tugging the door handle, and at the same moment, the protagonist ran towards him with a loud scream. He grabbed him from behind and started loudly calling for help. People heard this, began to gather, and he thought, well, it worked. Now he'll tell the neighbors everything. Suddenly, the police officer broke free, grabbed him, and loudly told him that he couldn't move. Miranda came out of the pharmacy and loudly asked, "What's going on here?" He turned to her and loudly said that she should call another police officer. It was that same maniac. She called him with a confused look and said that she couldn't believe it. MC said that it wasn't so. On the contrary, it was him. The police officer threw him to the ground and said that now he wouldn't escape. It was not for nothing that he was patrolling the area. He started to lose consciousness and thought that he had turned everything around and was not letting him speak. He hoped that at least she would believe him. He just wanted to make the people dear to him happy. He wanted this with all his heart. Sometime later in the courtroom, the judge said that they were starting the trial of the accused Ciclo. He said loudly that there was some kind of mistake. He was innocent. What evidence do they have that he is a criminal? The judge said that the accused claims so, but police officer Buzin Boshak thinks differently. He was surprised when he saw him and wondered why he was here. He asked loudly, "Are they kidding me? This is the real criminal." The judge loudly called the accused and said that he must remain silent. He said that the accused paid money to bandits and hooligans so that they would drive away civilians. Then he attacked women. This is confirmed by the investigation. He was outraged by this and thought, does he want to blame him for everything? The people in the audience believed this and began to insult him, considering it to be true. He began to get nervous about this and thought that there were too many listeners for such a trial. Are they all somehow connected to the injured women? They need more evidence to accuse someone of something like this. The policeman turned around and said that he was asking Lady Maria to enter, accompanied by the hero. The listeners were very surprised by this and asked why the defenders of this kingdom had come here. The protagonist looked at her with a very surprised look and wondered if she was really on their side. The hero put his hand on her shoulder and said that everything was fine. He was nearby, so she could tell the truth. She agreed, and the listeners said that the hero and the saint looked so good together. They said that they would soon get married. They should be quieter, the saint will testify now. She said that the accused was her ex-fiancé. With his skill as a watchmaker, it was hard for him to live, so she sent him letters and money. He was very surprised by this, and loudly asked, "What is she even talking about?" The policeman said that the church had records of sending money. He said loudly that it was a lie. He had not received any money. The audience said that a saint could not lie, so he should stop pretending. Buzin said loudly that they should bring the defendant's comrade. A bandit entered the room, laughed, and said that it was all true. He paid him money to drive people away, but he did not know what he did next. MC said that he did not even know what kind of person he was. He was innocent. Maria said that she hoped that he would honestly admit his guilt, but he was disgracing himself and calling them all liars. How disgusting he was. He was even more shocked by this betrayal, fell to his knees, extended his hand to her and asked why. The hero pointed a sword at him and loudly said that he was not allowed to approach her. He was only taking advantage of her kindness. He pounded the floor with his fists and loudly asked why no one believed him. He noticed Miranda in the crowd of listeners, called her over, and said that at least she should testify in his defense. She knew he wouldn't do that. She turned away and remained silent with tears in her eyes. The judge said he had made his decision. The accused was sentenced to hard labor, he thought. So that's how it is. He has a useless skill. Who would believe him anyway? Later, Buzin led him to the dungeon, laughed, and said that he was grateful to him for kindly taking all the blame. Ciclo turned to him with a displeased expression and said in a serious tone that one day he would send him to hell. He called him a maniac with a wide smile and said that he was looking forward to it. After that, he walked down the corridor and heard the girls calling the hero and saying that he was so cool. She didn't expect him to come too. He said that he was just doing what a hero should do. A policeman approached him and said that he would like to discuss the matter of transporting a criminal. He said goodbye to the girls, turned to him, and said that he understood. They looked at them and said that the hero, Raven, was from the Duke of Crowheart's family. The police officer, Buzin, was from the Viscount Beaujhac family. They had worthy skills that determined their bright futures. They both came to the office, and the hero said that he didn't think everything would go so smoothly. That idiot was bothering him too much. The policeman asked, did he manage to get the saint to testify against him? He said with a smile that she was telling the absolute truth. She just doesn't realize that the church took her money and burned her letters. Thanks to this, they were able to get rid of him, and now he can take Maria for himself. They both praised their cunning, and Buzin, with a wide grin, asked how anyone could live in this world if they couldn't get the women they wanted, right? Raven, with a wide grin, agreed, and said that the victors should celebrate. They laughed loudly, and after a while the protagonist was taken away in a carriage. He thought that in the north of the kingdom of Heinberg there was the most terrible dungeon, a bottomless pit. No one had ever reached the depths of this dungeon. Local adventurers constantly repel attacks from monsters that appear from there. Adventurers were created precisely to fight these monsters. Adventurers make money precisely from dungeons. Sometime later, on the northern borders of Northoria, a guard pushed him into the guild building. A worker noticed him and thought they had new faces here. The man called him a criminal slave and said he was sentenced to hard labor. His name was Guancoche, and he was the head of the Adventurers Guild. His sister, the sage, had told him about him. He had hope and thought that, for sure, because he was Alice's brother, they might at least believe him here. To his surprise, he said that she had said that her brother was a hopeless fool. He couldn't believe it, but he said that he had to believe it. A sage is never wrong. He was incredibly shocked by this, and wondered, however, why she had said that. Guan said that therefore they would not pity trash like him here. He would make him work until he died. The adventurers looked at him and said that he was not even fit to be a porter. He's a watchmaker. Does his skill really seem so useless? After that, he went with the adventurers as a porter, and they loudly told him that he should stop being lazy. He's so useless. One of them hit him and loudly said that he told him to stop being lazy. The second adventurer said that he should try not to kill him. After that, he slept in a dirty dungeon where rats ate his food, and he was completely broken. After some time, one of the adventurers loudly asked why it was taking him so long. He should go faster. MC agreed, and they said that lately he only agrees. It's become too boring. He agreed again, and the adventurer punched him in the face and loudly said how annoying he was. He no longer paid attention to it, and thought that this was where he would die, useless to anyone. They reached the entrance to the abyss, took his backpack from him, and said that A-rank adventurers had brought him here. He should at least take a look at it. They noticed that he wasn't paying any attention to it at all, and he opened his eyes and wondered if he jumped in there, would he die without suffering? He saw Buzin's face, who asked with a joyful expression, will he also die now, taking his sins to the grave? His eye changed. He began to try to break free and thought that it was too early. He couldn't die here. The adventurer pushed him into the abyss and loudly said that he was finally moving. The freak. He began to fall from a great height and screamed loudly in fear. After that, Ciclo came to his senses in a cave, raised his hand and wondered if this was some kind of miracle. He thought he wouldn't care about his life, but in the face of death, the desire to live suddenly awakened. As he fell, he caught on the web several times, which slowed his fall. He clearly lost consciousness during the fall, so he doesn't know what happened next. In any case, he was very lucky. First, he needed to assess the situation. He raised his hand and used the skill to create a clock. He looked at the time and wondered if it had been about a day since he fell here. Clearly, no one was going to save him. He had no food with him, but at least there was water. The second problem was the monsters. Most of the places in the abyss had not been explored. He needed to move carefully. Something dripped onto his head. He got scared, looked up and wondered what it was. From above, he saw a terrible monster devouring its prey. It finished eating something, turned to him, and stretched out its tentacles towards him. He looked at it in horror and wondered what it was. He had eaten a monster that was bigger than him. He needed to run before he was noticed. He looked to the side and noticed an eye on a tentacle looking at him. He started to run from there and screamed loudly in fear. He was very nervous, kept running and crawled through a small hole. He turned around and thought that it looked like it couldn't reach here. He noticed a light and wondered if he had found a way out. He couldn't even dream of it. because here only death lurked around every corner. 5 days later, he looked at his watch and thought that the monster was still waiting patiently. It was as if he was waiting for his favorite delicacy to ripen. He was so hungry. When was the last time he ate? Now he would really like the meat pie that his mother made. He saw hallucinations of Alice and Maria from the past, who asked if he was having a hard time, wasn't he? He had to go to them. He didn't need to suffer anymore. He was glad to see them and said that he was already on his way to them. At the last moment, they said with evil grins that finally a mediocrity like him could die. He came to his senses, screamed loudly, and thought that a little more and he would have jumped because of a hallucination. He noticed a lizard crawling nearby, asked for forgiveness, grabbed it, and started eating. He felt sick because of this, but he restrained his gag reflex and looked at the remaining tail. He thought that he was no better than them. You can always kill someone who bothers you. The strong kills the weak. Sage sister, saint girl. Why did he become some kind of watchmaker? He began to remember all the unpleasant things that happened to him, began to beat the wall with his fists until it bled, and said loudly in a very angry voice that he would not let this go. He will take revenge on everyone who hurt him. He will never forgive them. For this he must survive. He will not die here. At that moment, a bright column of light went up. People noticed it and loudly asked, "What is this light? Is it coming from the side of the abyss?" They must immediately report to the master. Energy mechanisms appeared around the protagonist. He began to examine them and asked, "What's going on?" He examined his hands and thought that he no longer wanted to eat, and that there were no more abrasions on his hands. Was it because of that lizard he ate? Then the effect would have been immediately after eating it. Stop. Internal clock. He needs to try to return to the state of satiety. He began to concentrate and use the skill, stop clock. He began to laugh with a surprised expression on his face and thought, this is it. His strength has returned. If he simply fixes it in this state, then he will be able to live on water alone. Now, he just needs to figure out how to get rid of the monster that won't leave. He created magic circles above himself and said that then he will get out of here. He has plenty of time. Previously, he used his ability only on simple clocks. The more often he used his skill, the better he mastered it. This means that the clockmaker allowed him to control more and more clocks. Hourglasses, water clocks, sun clocks, anything can become a clock. He needs to practice now. First, he needs to understand the hourglass and water clock. He will understand in detail how both clock mechanisms work. He needs to imagine what they will look like and recreate them. The clock will be filled with magical power, which will control its every movement. First, he succeeded in creating a sundial. He created the sundial and wondered if this size was his limit for now. If he wants to increase its size, he must become stronger himself, because magical power depends on physical power. After a month of training, he created several clocks and with a tense expression thought that it was not over yet. He must not lose concentration. He used the skill to stop the clock and with a joyful expression said that he succeeded. He took the first step. He sat on the floor, began to draw something on the stone, and thought that the second step was to use it in battle. He decided to stop at the hourglass, water clock, and sundial for now. He experimented and simultaneously left notes to get the hang of it faster. In the presence of obstacles, it is difficult to detect an object. If only there was something that allowed him to see through walls. Exactly. A shadow. It was as if he had become a child again. Only now, mixed with this feeling, he has a desire for revenge. He will improve to get revenge on them. After another 2 months, MC looked at his notes and thought that he had made such progress and felt great. Now it was time for him to defeat this monster. Thanks to training, he was able to better use detection with the sundial and analysis with the water clock. Now he can finally study his surroundings. He used the analysis skill and thought that by understanding how a water clock works, he can monitor the movement of blood in the body of creatures, which allows him to analyze them. However, that's not all. He used the clockmaking skill and thought that by understanding how a sundial works, he could create a light source that allows him to detect creatures by their shadows. Even behind a wall, he can detect what he can't see. Is the monster at the entrance, sharpening its claws? At that moment, the monster destroyed the entrance to the cave where he was hiding and was able to get inside. He couldn't believe it and wondered if he hadn't just been waiting these 3 months. He gradually made the passage wider, removing stone after stone. His legs don't obey him. He needs to deal with him right now. He was about to use the clockmaking skill, but was forced to dodge the monster's tentacles, and thought that if it weren't for the collar, he would already be dead. Cyclo started to run away and thought that first he needed to somehow blind him. He used the clockmaking skill and thought that thanks to the hourglass, he could release a multitude of grains of sand at incredible speed. He hit the monster's eyes and thought he had succeeded. The monster roared loudly and began to punch in all directions, but he dodged and loudly said that this only angered it more. He looked to the side in horror and thought that the passage was blocked. He closed his eyes and wondered if he really would die here. He finally opened them when he noticed that there was no collapse and wondered if the monster had lost him in the darkness. He used the analysis skill to find the monster and thought that he could see it clearly. He used the clockmaking skill and cut the monster in half. He thought that the sundial also allowed him to create an arrow that easily cuts through the enemy. Now this is definitely the end. He used the analysis skill and thought that the blood was not pulsating, showing no signs of life. He was incredibly happy about this, and loudly said that he had succeeded. He defeated it. Clockmaker, this is not a useless skill. He looked at his hand and wondered in surprise. He could feel energy spreading throughout his body. Was this leveling up? Leveling up means that by killing monsters, people absorb their souls and magical powers, which in turn develops a person's abilities. So, he was able to level up? That means the more monsters he defeats, the stronger he becomes. He quickly found similar monsters and thought with a wide smile that they would be the first step on his path to revenge. Now the hand of his clock started to move. He would deal with them first. He used the skill, create a clock, and cut the body of one of the monsters. He thought that using a water clock to cut with a water blade, he easily dodged the monster's attack, laughed, and said that it was too slow. He looked at the monster with a smile and wondered if this was thanks to leveling up. He could clearly see their attacks. He noticed that another monster was about to attack him and created a shield from a water clock and a sword from a sun clock. He thought that clock making allows him to create not only entire clocks, but also individual parts. Thus, he can create any part from any material he knows, even if it is a precious metal. He must taste the sharpness of orichalcum. He killed this monster with one blow, but at that very moment 3 more new toad-like monsters were about to attack him. He used the clock-making skill, killed these monsters and said with a smile that his level had increased again. Excellent. He feels himself being filled with magical power. He turned around and noticed that a new, larger monster with tentacles had come towards him. He wondered with a slightly worried look, is this the local boss? He dodged the monster's attack and counterattacked with the clock-making skill. He fired several projectiles, but the monster defended itself with its tentacles, like a web. He saw this and said that he was smarter than the other monsters. He created a sword for himself with his skill, but noticed that the monster had sent its tentacles underground. He created a shield to defend himself and asked loudly, is it digging the ground with its tentacles? The shield wouldn't last long. He started to loudly call for help, but quickly stopped and said with a grin, as if anyone would come. He used the skill create a clock, attacked the monster, and said that there was no way he could hide from him. If there was blood in his body, he would find him everywhere. It was time to counterattack. He would show it the highest level sundial. The protagonist finished killing this monster and asked, how funny has it turned out? Now he doesn't have to run away from these monsters anymore. He analyzed the situation and realized there were no signs of life, and said it was time to leave. He thought that the clock storage originally allowed him to store small parts, but now there was practically unlimited space. He poured water into a mug with the skill, drank it, and thought that clean water after a fight was the best. He needed to regain his strength. The energy cube is a cube that contains his life energy so that he can restore it at any time. He restored the energy, went further, and noticed a flower on the ground that caught his attention. He came closer and wondered what the flower was doing in such a place. Using the clock control skill, he restored these flowers and thought that he gave them back some time. They must fight for their lives, like him. It was the first time he saw anything beautiful since that fateful day. After some time, he found an ascent upward and thought there was no other way. He continued along this path, came out into a spacious hall surrounded by flames and asked what it was. He did not detect signs of life, but suddenly a voice said that it was surprising. People do not often appear here, especially from below. MC immediately created a sword and shield and thought, his analysis did not find where the enemy is? The voice laughed and asked, where is he in such a hurry? He is the guardian of the center of the Labyrinth of Judgment. A huge monster descended to him, who introduced himself as an ancient spirit. He looked at it with a worried look and thought that it was different from the monsters he had encountered before. So this place is called the Labyrinth of Judgment? He asked. Is this the central level of the labyrinth? The monster created several magic circles and said in a frightening voice that since he had reached it, he should be prepared to die. His life would be his. He used the skill create clock, but the monster's fire attack reached him, and he thought that the heat was making it hard for him to concentrate. The monster stopped its attack and asked with a little surprise, did he still manage to repel the attack? Ciclo looked up and thought that the monster was a spirit. There was no blood flowing through it, so it was not possible to detect it. However, it didn't matter now. He didn't like that it looked down on him. He used the skill create clock, fired a projectile, and managed to injure this monster. He was glad that he succeeded, and the monster asked, is a human using magic that can harm him? He used his skill again and said loudly that he should shut up and die. He hit the spirit with all these projectiles, who couldn't believe what was happening, and screamed loudly in pain. The monster fell to the ground, and he came closer, laughed and said that it was an ancient spirit, and there was so much pathos. He needed to see if something fell. He was very surprised when the monster grabbed him, called him an idiot, and said that he fell into its trap. He thought that spirits can inhabit people's bodies, and he was clearly of high rank. The monster said that he didn't expect him to be so strong. His curse will kill him, and he will become the new vessel. He attacked his heart with his claws. His body was engulfed by the curse, and he thought that it was trying to tear his body apart from the inside. This is the curse. What should he do? He has no time to think. He used the skill Create Clock, creating powerful energy, getting ready to attack, and the surprised monster said that he would kill himself too. He said that he knew, but now he would check who would burn first. Spirit loudly called him pathetic and wondered, is he even in his right mind? He is under the effect of the curse, then why is he even moving? However, he will not last long. It began to take over his body and thought that he won. He stopped using the skill, laughed, and said that it was already inside his body. With such a body, he will be able to feed on people, like in the good old days. He became worried when he realized that he could not move, and the protagonist asked, does he think that he will let him do it so easily? He began to eat energy cubes and said that he will not eat people, because then he really will be a criminal. He will not let him win so easily. The monster flew out of his body and loudly asked, did he expel him with these cubes? Could this really be his life force? He created a magic circle and said loudly that he would get out of this dungeon and take revenge on the world that rejected him. Spirit also created a magic circle, called him naive, and said that he would rot here. They attacked each other at the same time, but the monster began to lose and loudly cursed him. Some object remained after his death, and he began to breathe heavily from fatigue, and thought that it was close. If he didn't have the cubes, he would have already died. He said that this is the central level, which means the monsters below are stronger. Watchmaker, this is a skill that needs to be learned. One mistake, and he could die. He slapped himself in the face and thought that he mustn't forget about this. He needed to stop racking his brains. He looked at his braid, looked at his reflection, and asked loudly, has his hair turned gray? Is it because of the curse? Maybe the color will come back later? It seems there's nothing to worry about. It's time to go. He started running very quickly towards the exit and saw a staircase leading to the exit, from where bright sunlight was shining. He went outside, started crying, shouted loudly with joy, and said that he finally got out. The guards noticed him and asked what was wrong with him. He doesn't know. He must have gone crazy. MC was the first one who was able to pass the central level of the most difficult dungeon alone. Meanwhile, in the capital, the arrows of fate of the others also made their move. Team Alice called her and said that she, as always, did a great job. Does she want to send this reward to her brother again? She laughed and said that her brother is no good, so she should try for both. His arrows of fate also began their move. At the same time, the nobles looked at the clock and said that only he could fix this clock. Ciclo must fix everything as soon as possible. Sometime later, in the borderlands of Northoria at the gate, he said that he even missed these walls. He took his abyss exploration permit from the vault and said that of those who had one, only he had been able to pass the central level. He approached the guard and showed his pass. The guard contemptuously called him a criminal slave and allowed him to pass. He approached the townspeople and politely asked how to get to the Adventurers Guild. They loudly said in disgust that he stunk. He had a collar. He was an escaped criminal. He denied it and was about to say something, but they loudly said that he was not allowed near them. She would call the guards now. A child from a nearby house threw a stone at him, but he noticed it and caught it with one hand. They were shocked by this, and he, with a serious expression, thought that no matter how strong his skills were, to them he was still a criminal slave. He went into a dark alley and said that he thought he was supposed to go this way. He walked further, went down the stairs, and saw a chained girl sitting on the ground. He wondered what a child was doing here. She turned away. He became confused, asked for forgiveness, and said that he did not mean to look like that. He was lost. He needed the Adventurers Guild. Did she know where it was? He noticed that her hands were shaking and thought that she was afraid, which was logical. After all, he was a criminal slave. She raised her hand, pointed to the stairs, and said that he should go there. He went there, thanked her with a joyful expression, and she was surprised by this. He thought that she somehow reminded him of the white flower he saw in the abyss. Thanks to her, he plucked up his resolve. Cyclo opened the door to the guild. The adventurers who threw him into the abyss noticed him and immediately recognized him. He thought that he would change fate with his own hands. He said with a serious expression that they should call the guild master. He returned straight from the abyss. At the same time, in the capital's Artisans Guild, the dissatisfied guild master threw documents in different directions and loudly asked why they were terminating one contract after another. His son called him and said that he needed to calm down a little. He turned to him and loudly said that he should listen to him carefully. Why couldn't he fix the watch for Ms. Olivia? He had 3 days, but he turned out to be even worse than that idiot. He got scared because of this and loudly said that he couldn't be worse than him. Exactly. It was because he left some unnecessary parts that confused him. Many dissatisfied workers entered their office, loudly called him, and said that they could not tolerate this anymore. The salary is terrible. It's practically slave labor. They actually have professional skills. Besides, there is chaos here. He leaves the main work to newbies who always fail to complete orders. He said loudly that they should shut up immediately. What newbies are they talking about? They have much better skills than them. They can only do one type of work. Useless jerks. If necessary, he will even take away their vacation. One of them said that it is clear they heard him. He said with a displeased expression on his face that they were doing well and now they should get back to work. A worker came up to him and delivered a very hard punch to his face. They said that they did not need such work. He quits. He would also be better off finding a job with his competitors. They left, and the guildmaster lay on the floor and said that it all started when he fired that jerk. He is a criminal, isn't he? He wasn't falsely accused because he fired him? He sat up, and his son asked if he was okay. He said loudly that he should shut up and leave there too. He grabbed the documents lying on the floor, started pounding his fists on the floor, burst into tears, and said loudly that if he were here, he would do a quality watch repair and reform. He needed a watchmaker. At the same time, Buzin walked down the street, attracting the attention of young girls standing on the street. An old woman stood in front of Miranda and said that she shouldn't overexert herself. She thanked her, looked away and noticed him. He brought her a bouquet of flowers and said hello. They went inside and she said that, as always, she thanked him for everything. He said that psychological support is also the duty of a police officer. She remembered the main character with an upset look and said that she still couldn't believe that he was capable of such a thing. He seemed such a good boy to her. He would surely reform. He agreed with a smile and said that he was currently undergoing rehabilitation in a distant city. He personally advocated for his rehabilitation. He thought that he needed to say what she wanted to hear. Although he was sure that he was dying in some ditch, she was glad to hear this, thanked him, and he called her and said that he would like to discuss something. Would she like to visit his domain while she was traveling? It seemed that a change of scenery was exactly what she needed now. After some time, Miranda thought that the Lord was really very kind. He even arranged a carriage and an accompanying coachman for her. Suddenly, the carriage stopped and the door was opened by a bandit with a wide smile. He put a knife to her throat, turned around and called out to the man standing nearby. He approached them, and she asked in a frightened voice, he was her accompanying coachman, wasn't he? He gagged her, apologized and said that he was just doing his job. Her hands were tied, pulled out of the carriage, and she wondered what would happen to her. The Lord must help her. Her attention was caught by what she heard the man say. Here's his money, as he promised. She looked to the side, noticed Buzin, and tried to call for help, but he was looking at her with a wide grin. She was very worried about this, and thought that she couldn't believe she had been deceived. Could it be that even what happened at the trial was a lie? That couldn't be right. At the same time, Guan said that it was definitely a slave collar. It looked real. MC agreed, gave his name and said that he was sorry for disappointing him, but it was real. He looked at him with a serious expression and asked, so he came back from the pit? He agreed, pointed to the group of adventurers and said that one of his damned adventurers had thrown him into the dungeon. They loudly denied it, but the guildmaster turned around and said that their reports said that he went crazy after a monster attack and jumped off the cliff himself. He remembered what happened earlier and asked, it sounds true, doesn't it? They were constantly mocking him. They pretended to push him and actually did it. He listened to him and said that if his testimony was true, they would all be held accountable. However, filing a false report was a serious crime. The adventurers began to get nervous and asked what they should do now. He thought that no one would know. Cyclo looked at them and asked, maybe next time they should choose a better place to throw someone. Thanks to this, he survived and even became stronger. They will be punished, and he will only get better, which suits him. He owes them a lot. They were very angry about this, took out their weapons, ran to him and loudly said that he should have just died. The other adventurers were worried about this, and he looked at them and thought that they were too slow. He blocked their blows with his hands, which surprised them all. He delivered a strong kick and threw them into the table. He looked at them, and with a serious expression, said that attempted murder is another charge in their dossier. They looked at him with dissatisfied faces, and he created a huge hourglass, and they found themselves inside and loudly asked what kind of thing it was. They couldn't break it, and he said that it was an hourglass. In 10 minutes, the sand would completely cover them. Until then, he gives them a chance to confess everything. Guan said that now that the circus was over, they should get back to their conversation. How did he escape from the deep pit? They were sitting at a table outside. He listened to his story and said that he was grateful for what he told. It seemed like he had been through hell. He would like to believe him, but does he have proof that he reached the bottom layer? The protagonist looked at his inventory and agreed. He pulled out several monster bodies from there, which greatly surprised all the adventurers nearby. They looked at it in horror and loudly asked what kind of monster was this and where did he get it from? He showed several more different body parts of monsters from subspace and said that he had more. Guan loudly asked him to stop and said that he understood everything. This was more than enough proof. They should bring someone with the mining skill. Besides, where is the cleaning solvent? He yawned and thought that he hoped that the monster materials were still worth something. The girl approached him and asked if he didn't like the herbal tea. He didn't even touch it. He apologized, remembered Miranda, and said he was just thinking for a moment. The guildmaster came to him and said that the loot appraisal was ready. He handed him a note and said that here was a rough estimate. He was very surprised when he saw that it said 100 platinum coins, and thought that when he was a watchmaker, he earned about 1 platinum coin a year. Could this really be his salary for 100 years? If he had realized the true power of his skill earlier, perhaps he could have lived laughing with everyone. However, Now it no longer mattered. Guan called him, bowed, and said that he begged for forgiveness. He stood aside while he was being mocked. As a human, he asked to be allowed to apologize to him. He knew about what was happening, but he was a known criminal slave. He weighed the interests of the guild and sided with the adventurers. MC said that so, in fact, he turned a blind eye to it. It was a necessary choice for the guild. He thought about it and with a serious expression said that it was selfish. He stood in front of him and said that he had the right to think so. He thought that at least he was not his enemy. He called him and said that he wanted to use all the coins he received to buy back his freedom. He thought that with the ransom system, a criminal slave could gain freedom by paying an amount proportional to his crimes. He said that he wanted to be free and become a licensed adventurer. He would take care of it, right? Guan chuckled and said that of course he would take care of it. He tore off his collar with a grin and said that he was glad that he was thinking quickly. After some time, he woke up and thought that it had been a long time since he slept in a bed. He looked out the window and thought that when he returned, the girl was no longer there. It's impossible for someone to live in that dump. Maybe he just imagined it? He came to the Adventurers Guild. The girl greeted him and said that she would call the guild master right away. He thanked her and thought that their attitude towards him had changed a lot. Guan came to him, said hello, and said that they could get started. Siklo asked. He was talking about adventurer registration, right? They said that it was already done. They also opened a deposit account for him. He was surprised by this and said that it was very useful. They handled it quickly. He agreed and said that it was his guild card, a certificate of registration as an adventurer. He took it and noticed that the card was black and said that he had never seen anything like it. By the way, where is his rank? He thought that adventurers are ranked according to their strength. When he was just a porter, he was considered below rank F. Rank S has rare professional skills. A can defeat large monsters alone. B and C ranks require a group effort to defeat large monsters. All beginners start with ranks F and D. The guild master said his card was a legendary black one, and as for the adventurer rank, it would be faster if he found out for himself. They came to the office, where he saw a measuring device and noticed that it didn't look like usual. He began to examine the device, and Guan said that it was a special device for measuring status. In his case, a regular device wouldn't work. Does he already know how the meter works? He agreed and thought about status measurements. He once admired them when he was just a porter. He pressed the button, pulled the lever, and thought that he wanted to know how much stronger he had become after the abyss. The room was illuminated by bright energy, and the screen showed S-rank vitality, S-rank maximum magical power, S-rank physical strength, S-rank magical power, S-rank magical resistance, S-rank magical power control, SSS guild rank. The guildmaster looked at this and said that the result was truly worthy of his achievement. The protagonist asked how amazing this was. He shuddered because Guan said that, for example, his sister, Alessandria, the famous great sage, even someone like her, an S-rank adventurer, only had an S-rank in her special stats. The rest, like her and an S-rank adventurer, only had an S-rank in their special stats. The rest are usually A or B rank. However, in his case, all stats exceeded them. A truly extraordinary achievement. It will go down in history. He was surprised by this and thought that, however, he still didn't think it was real. Guan called him and said that he had a favor to ask. Would he mind meeting the Lord? When he told him about him, he showed interest and wanted to hear more details from him. He thought that if he could make connections with someone in power, maybe he could use this to get revenge on those who left him to rot in hard labor. He agreed to this and said that he was honored. He thanked him and said that he would be very helpful. They also need to find him suitable clothes. After that, he came to a salon called Kitsune and was puzzled by what he saw. He entered this luxurious salon, was greeted, and began to become very nervous. He said with a very confused look that the Adventurers Guild sent him here. He was looking for equipment. She asked if she could see his guild card. She took it, saw his rank, ran away and asked for some time in a surprised tone. A polite old man came to him and said that he never thought he would meet an SSS rank adventurer. They would prepare only the best equipment for them. MC saw the hands of a true craftsman and thought that they looked like they would do an excellent job. He asked how long it would take. The master said that if he could wait here. He was a little confused by this, and he said that his profession was a grand couturier, a high-class tailor. He was very surprised when he saw him at work and said that it was like watching an orchestra conductor. He finished the work and thanked him for waiting. He looked at it and thought that he liked the design, but something was wrong. The master said that he should touch it. He touched the robe and was surprised when it fit him right away. He thought it was amazing. As soon as he put it on, he immediately felt like it was the right fit. He said the pattern reflected his innate magical essence. Did he like it? He agreed, thanked him, and said he already adored it. The girl offered to recommend a few more things. He took it, started to leave, and was wished a good adventure. The next day, he and Guan came to the Lord's estate, and they both sat waiting on the couch. He entered their hall and said that he apologized for keeping them waiting. His name is Deimos Northfolia. Nice to meet you. This is his daughter, Cruz. A girl stood behind him, who greeted him in a confused tone and said that she was very pleased to meet him. Siklo introduced himself and said that he was an adventurer. His attention was drawn to the girl looking at him with a very happy expression, and her father apologized and said that she really wanted to meet him. She really admires adventurers. He sat down on the chair in front of them and said that they would put it aside for now. He had 3 topics of conversation. He had an idea and said that before he started talking, he asked for permission to speak. He was not going to be polite just because he was a noble. He was here as an equal to negotiate. Guan was surprised by this and loudly called his name, but he ignored him and said that he wanted something from him, so he did not have to show respect. Deimos with a friendly smile said that this was fair. He was not going to pretend to be important in front of an SSS ranked adventurer. So, first of all, he wanted to buy information about the abyss from him and was willing to pay at least 100 platinum coins. He was very surprised by what he heard, and he asked what he would say about this. The protagonist immediately agreed and said that such a reward was fair. After some time, when he finished the story, the Lord wrote it down, thanked him and said that this information was already more than enough. He still can't believe that the place where he fell is the middle layer and not the deep one. He began to stretch and said that this is all he can tell for now. He must not forget about the payment. He agreed and said that now he wanted to move on to the second question. However, it was quite late. Would he stay for dinner? His daughter would be very happy about it. He wanted to refuse, but noticed how upset Cruz was and still agreed. She was very happy about this. They sat down at the table. Deimos called him and said that now he wanted to discuss the second topic. He does not believe that he is a criminal. MC was surprised by this and asked, so he thinks that he was falsely accused? He agreed and said that he studied the records of his trial. It was a clown show. To assign a criminal record to an SSS-ranked adventurer on such grounds, it's simply ridiculous. He doesn't know what they decided in the capital, but in North Foria, where they have autonomy, he is a free man, so he can continue taking quests as if nothing happened. He asked in a slightly surprised tone, did he know that he was strange? He said that people often tell him that. The maid placed dishes on the table, and Cruz said that they wanted to treat him. These were all local dishes. He thanked them and said that he would accept it with gratitude. He began to eat and wondered when was the last time he ate properly. Although his body had changed to not feel hunger, so he didn't need food. He tried the dish, was surprised by it, began to actively eat and thought that he hadn't eaten human food for so long. Tears flowed from his eyes and he thought that it was so delicious. They looked at him with kind smiles and asked if he wanted more. He began wiping away tears, agreed, and asked if he could. He thought that at least these people seemed like he could trust at least a little. After that, Deimos said that he would now move on to his last request. He had a task that only he, an SSS-ranked adventurer, could handle. He wanted him to explore the very depths of the abyss. Ciclo agreed and said that he would level up and fulfill the order. An excellent offer. He laughed and said that he was glad to hear it. He also wanted him to completely conquer this dungeon. He was surprised by what he heard and thought that completely conquering a dungeon meant defeating the guardian of the lowest floor and disabling the dungeon's function. After conquering it, the traps disappear. The monsters become fewer, and eventually, the dungeon ceases to exist. He asked, isn't that really possible? Isn't North Foria thriving precisely because of the abyss? Deimos agreed and said that the land's prosperity had always gone hand in hand with the dungeon. However, the disasters that befall them also come from the abyss. He said that when monsters become too numerous and break through to the surface, it's called a panic. He said that North Foria had no choice but to depend on the dungeon's resources simply to survive in the face of this threat. If complete subjugation would reduce the risk, he would be sincerely grateful for its help. He thought he was right. If a monster from the middle layer got out, the city would simply be wiped off the face of the earth. He considered this and said he understood. What would be the reward? He said he could name his price. He would prepare whatever he wished within his capabilities. That's how valuable complete subjugation of the abyss was. They would be able to protect people from the threat of monsters. The protagonist looked at him with a smile and said that he really was different from the other nobles. He laughed about it and said that he was pleased to hear it. Then, there is something he will need for subjugation, namely, party members. He was very worried about what he heard, put the cup on the table and thought, why does he need this? He alone is enough for this. He remembered how he was betrayed and said that he will never allow himself to be betrayed again. Deimos said with a smile that he thought he would say that. So he knows one place where there are people he will definitely like. After some time, he came to the right place and thought that the shops recommended by the Lord were all so luxurious. He remembered how earlier he said that he should buy slaves bound by subjugation magic. At least then they will be a little more reliable, right? He went inside and the merchant said that this is the desire of the Lord himself. He should tell more about his preferences. MC sat down on the sofa in front of him and said he wanted to buy slaves for dungeon conquering. Only those who could be associated with subjugation magic. He figured this shop was behind the Adventurers Guild, so the typical cycle here is slaves becoming adventurers and adventurers becoming slaves. The guildmaster is really strange if you think about it. The merchant returned with several people, thanked him for the long wait, and asked, what about these slaves for dungeon work? They were former B and C rank adventurers. One of the slaves asked, does he have to be a dungeon nanny now? It sounded pretty simple. Cyclo looked at him and thought that he was probably the strongest of them here, but he was proud and arrogant. If you compare, their abilities are about his level. He asked to see the other adventurer slaves, and they looked surprised about it. After some time, he sat on the couch and, looking tired, and thought that he had already looked at all the former adventurers. None of them were capable of penetrating the deep layers of the deep pit. The merchant asked if he liked anyone. He apologized and said that, however, he wanted to change his preferences. He must forget about strength. He needed someone obedient and easy to handle. He understood this and said that then, in addition to adventurers, there were slaves compatible with subjugation magic. Of these, they had one status slave. This is a person born or appointed to this role by law. It all depends on their profession. He was surprised by what he heard and asked if the person became a slave because of their profession. He asked for this slave to be brought to him. The merchant returned, covered his nose with his fingers because of the smell, and said that under normal circumstances, he would never recommend her, but this girl is their status slave. Her profession is heretic. The protagonist remembered seeing her and thought that he had seen her. She was in the trash heap. She's in rags? Has she really been living in a dump all this time? He asked in a displeased tone. What kind of treatment is this? The merchant became concerned and said loudly that everything was legal. The church selects professions for those whose skills contradict the faith, cannot be considered human. He was very surprised by what he heard and thought that he had suffered so much after acquiring the skill of a watchmaker, and thought that no one could be worse than him. What a spoiled idiot he was. Compared to her, at least he had the freedom to live like a human being. This is all wrong. This country and religion, this God, everything that allows professions to dictate destinies. The merchant approached him and said that although she hardly met his standards, he did not listen to him and said that he was buying her. He had to complete the purchase. He agreed and left. An MC came up to her and sat in front of her with a friendly smile and asked what her name was. She was surprised by this and, looking a little confused, said that her name was Mist Carmine. He began to reach out his hand to her. She was scared that he was going to hit her and closed her eyes. He stroked her head and said that she had a beautiful name. He also introduced himself, felt that she was trembling and thought that he understood. Naturally, that she was wary. He needed to let her know that everything was okay. He said that she should not be afraid. He would never harm her. He hugged her and, with a serious expression on his face, said that from this day on he would protect her. Anyone who tried to hurt her, he would drive away. That was his promise. She was touched by this, lowered her hands and thanked him for it. After that, they went together to the merchant, who was sitting at the table, and said that the subordination contract was ready. He must pour mana into this magic circle, and everything will be completed. He directed energy into the contract. He was surprised by this and loudly asked, "What is this incredible mana?" A magical mark appeared on her neck, and he said that the mark on her neck was proof of the contract. To give orders, he must pour mana into it and say it. Punishments are also activated. Strong mana can work even from a distance. Cyclo approached her and said that he didn't think he would need it, but he would remember. He took off her shackles, took her hand and said that they should go. Mist was confused by this, called him master and said that he would get his hand dirty. He didn't pay attention to this and said that she didn't need to worry. From today on they were comrades. Much earlier, when it was winter outside, she was walking down the street and thought that today she should also try to help the priest. She came to the church, started washing the windows. An old man came up to her, thanked her and asked if she was cold. She turned around and said that she was fine. Was there anything else she could help with? He said that it was already late. She should go home and could come tomorrow. He stroked her head and said that God is always watching. If she behaved well, she would definitely gain a good skill. She ran home through the slums and thought that God does not abandon good children. She entered the house. Her mother threw a plate at her and loudly said that she was too late. How much longer can she walk around doing nothing? She was leaving, and she had to tidy up here. Mist agreed, and she walked past, skid discontentedly, and said that children were only a nuisance. She began to clean up the trash in the house and thought that everything would be fine if she behaved well someday. Later she came to church and the priest loudly asked, "What is this? This skill. This is a heretic." She was shocked by this, called the priest and asked what this meant. People were shocked by this and began to loudly insult her. After that, she was shackled and she thought that she behaved well, tried, but God did nothing. Her mother, with a displeased expression, waved her off, after which she lived on the streets and thought that nothing could be done here. She should not have been born. She was a bad child. She lived, apologizing for being born and living. But then she met the main character. She thought that this was the person who spoke to her last time. When he stroked her head and said that she should not be afraid, he would never harm her. She thought that this was wrong, because she behaved badly. Thanks to this, she felt much better, and she thought that no one stood up for her and no one believed her. Not her mother, not the whole town, not even God, and yet this man says he will be on her side, so she can move forward. After they left the store, she started to cry and thought that the owner gave her the courage to face fate when she was desperate. She held his hand and thanked him for it. After some time, they were riding in a carriage. Mist woke up when he called her and said that they had arrived. She began to get nervous, abruptly moved away from him and asked loudly if she had fallen asleep. She apologized and he laughed and said that everything was fine. They were walking to the estate. She called the owner and asked where they were going. He said that this was the estate of the ruler of North Foria. She was very surprised by this, and he said that it so happened that he owed him something. Cruz noticed them, called him with a joyful expression on her face, and said that he had come to visit them again. Who is this girl with him? He said that this is a member of his group. He has one request. She happily agreed and said that he can ask for anything. They went inside, walked along the corridor, and she said that they will prepare clothes. He thanked her, and Mist was a little nervous and wondered where they were going. They came to the bathroom, and Cruz said that they can go and properly wash off the fatigue. She was very surprised by this and asked, "They will go to the bath?" He agreed and said that they should go. He will help them wash off. She's still a child, after all. She's still exhausted, and it is dangerous to go into a huge bath alone. She was embarrassed and asked the owner how old he thinks she is. He started taking off his clothes and asked, about 10 years old? She said that he was wrong. She is 17 years old. He was very surprised by what he heard, asked for forgiveness and said that indeed she did have the skill. He apologized again and said that it was really dangerous to be alone in the bathroom. He didn't mean anything bad, honestly. They wrapped themselves in towels. He started washing her hair, and she thought the owner was strange. He treats her with such care. She called him and said that she wanted to talk about what happened. Why shouldn't he use an order? He understood what she meant and said that, however, he didn't want to use an order for such things. He wanted her to be as free as possible. She started crying. He became worried and called her by name. She was confused about this and said that when he was kind to her, she was happy. After that, MC was sitting on the couch drinking tea. Mist came into the room and said that she apologized for the wait. He saw the dress she was wearing and said that it suited her very well. She thanked him, looked at her dress and said that the people in the mansion gave her some of Cruz's old clothes. They also combed her hair, which was very generous. He said that now they needed to solve the problem with her health. He took out cubes from his subspace and said that it seemed to be here. She looked at it and wondered, is this the master's skill? She looked at what he took out and asked what it was. He said that it was an energy cube, a clot of his life energy, so he wanted her to eat it. She was nervous looking at it and asked, does she really have to eat it? He agreed with a calm smile and said that it was an incredible thing. She only got more nervous and said that, however, it didn't look like food at all. He continued to persuade her. She took one cube, ate it, and thought that if this was the master's order, then she agreed. She was very surprised when she felt a sweet taste, began to fall, grabbed his clothes and said that she was hot. He said that everything was fine. These were signs of recovery. She felt the energy of the cube enveloping her, and when she felt better, he called her and said that she should look at herself in the mirror. She went to the mirror, was surprised by what she saw and asked, is it really her? He said with a smile that he did warn her that this was an amazing thing. Mist, with a joyful expression on her face, agreed and said that it was truly incredible. He was just like a god. He was confused by this and said that she should not exaggerate. He also used it when it seemed that his body would soon be taken over. He instinctively. She looked at him with a smile and thought that this was not an exaggeration. In just one day, he gave her so much happiness. They sat on the sofa. Ciclo called her and said that he bought her because he needed a companion with whom he could explore dungeons together as an adventurer. He was going to give her only one single order. She clutched her dress tightly, nervously, and agreed to listen to it. He remembered everything that happened to him, hid the pain behind a smile, and said that he asked her to believe him no matter what happened. She was surprised by this and asked if that was really enough. He agreed and said that he did not need anything else. She agreed, showed the sign on her neck, and said that he had to give her an order. He looked at it with a worried look, and she thought that perhaps the owner also had something very difficult in the past. However, he could rest easy. He finished pouring mana into the sign and asked her for forgiveness. She turned to him, refused, took his hand and said with a smile that even without an order, she swears that she will believe in him. He was a little surprised by this. A smile appeared on his face and he thanked her for it. When night fell, a group of adventurers entered the guild building, which attracted the attention of everyone inside. The adventurers looked at them and said that this is a group of S ranks. This is amazing. A girl from this group approached the counter and asked if anything interesting happened during their expedition. The employee agreed and said that an incredible adventurer appeared from an unexplored level. This intrigued the girl and she asked if she could tell her more about it. Sometime later, in the garden, the protagonist called Mist and said that today he proposed activating her skill. She was a little nervous about this and asked if everything would be okay. Her skill was Heretic. If it was a dangerous skill that could injure the owner and the residents. He took her hand, stroked her head, and said that she was very kind. Everything would be fine. No matter what happened, he would think of something. She plucked up her resolve, agreed, and said that she would try and asked him to take care of her. He agreed and said that first he would let the magical power flow from here. She should try to catch this feeling, then she would be able to understand magic. She promised to try. He directed magic into her hand. She cried out and he worriedly asked if she was okay. She agreed with a confused look and said that she was just a little surprised. He offered to continue, looked at her with a worried look, and thought that the perception of magical energy is something that is usually taught immediately after receiving the skill. However, she hadn't even been taught this. She felt something, called the owner, and he apologized and asked if it had been difficult. She said she thought she already understood. He patted her on the head, praised her, and said she had done it quickly. She felt embarrassed about this, but he thought she was cute and said they should move on to the next step. Now she should try to move this magical power she had found. There should be several places in the body where it flows. People say differently that it is in the soul and so on. But the main thing is that this is where the skill is located. He sat down on a bench and thought that this is usually where everyone stumbles and he should wait calmly. She quickly found it, warned him about it, and he was very surprised by this. She said in a slightly confused tone that it seemed to be inside the body, but at the same time, as if it was nowhere to be found, a very strange sensation. He said she should try to let the magical power flow. She warned her master that she was starting, and he thought it was a heretic skill, which is why she was considered an outcast. She created a large magic circle above her head, which released bright rays of light onto the ground. He looked at it in surprise and asked, "Is this holy restoration magic?" It also has a large radius. It is a mass healing, after all. He hugged her and said that it was amazing. She was just like a holy maiden. People who can use holy magic are rare. Even if they can, at first, the maximum is healing one person. What she does is incredibly cool. She was very embarrassed about this and said that this praise hurt her. He apologized and said that he would be more careful. She agreed and said that she was starting to use the second skill. She concentrated energy and created a magical barrier around them. He looked at it in surprise and asked, "Is this really a magical barrier?" She has been using intermediate level light magic from the very beginning. She has an affinity for light magic, which includes attacking, debuffing, and protecting allies, and holy magic, which provides support and healing. She asked, "So, she can use magic to attack, protect, and support." He agreed, and she asked if he was well versed in these skills. MC felt sad when he remembered Maria and said that he used to have a fiancée who possessed a holy skill. Mist looked at him, remembered the previous story, and thought that the owner looked the same. Perhaps this was a topic that shouldn't be touched on. She thought about it, came up with something, and said that then she would start using the third skill. He was distracted by this and said that the next one would also be an incredible skill. She stopped and said that she seemed to be able to fix things. For example, she could make these flowers more vibrant. And the owner's hair, it seemed she could fix that. He asked if she could fix the hair that the ancient spirit had made snow white. He thought about it, called her, and said that this skill was regeneration magic. It was a legendary magic that could restore anything. She was surprised by this and asked, "Does she have such a powerful power?" He agreed and said that he had only heard of it in stories. "Are these all the skills she can use?" She denied it and said that there were 2 more skills. He thought that a holy maiden could use 4 skills, but she had 5. Each skill was at the level of a holy maiden or higher. People who use holy magic are rare, so they are usually highly valued by the church. However, why was she persecuted by the church? The ritual for determining skills, is this ritual really correct? Her skills were more important now. He said that then she should activate the 4th skill. She agreed, used magic, and wings of energy appeared behind the 2 of them. She apologized and said that when she let the magical energy through, it activated. He asked her not to worry and asked if it seemed like the stats were increasing, right? She said that besides her and the master, the rest of the people's abilities seemed to be decreasing. He asked, so it was strengthening allies and weakening enemies at the same time? He found it incredible and asked how much magical energy she used. Mist said that it took much more than last time. He said with a thoughtful look that it would not be possible to use this skill often. Then it would be better to use it as a trump card. He suggests giving it a name and suggests naming the shrine. Magic manifests greater power when it is given a name. It is probably because it is easier to imagine the effect. Her magic is something like its own sacred space. She thanked him with a small smile and said that it was a beautiful name. Ciclo called her and said that she could give it a name herself. She loudly refused and said that she liked the name the master gave. After that, the wings disappeared, and she said that the feeling of strengthening had disappeared. He agreed and said that there are skills with a long-term effect, and there are those that act instantly. Active skills are activated when a person channels magic. Passive skills constantly maintain various enhancements. She understood this and asked if she could use magic because she had passive skills in holy magic and light magic, right? He agreed and said that she grasped everything very quickly. She was glad to hear this and said that then they would move on to the last skill. He agreed. She used her skill and with a slightly confused look, said that her body became somehow light. He asked her to try jumping. She agreed and jumped several meters into the air. He caught her and said that it looked like a skill for strengthening the body or compatibility with weapons. After lunch, they would go to the city and look at weapons and armor. She called the owner and asked if her skills could be useful. He agreed and said that even more than that, She had a talent that surpassed even the Holy Maiden. She agreed with a joyful smile, but immediately became embarrassed and asked if he could let her go already. He was confused by this, put her down on the ground and asked for forgiveness. They went to lunch and he thought that he should stop remembering the Holy Maiden. Their paths then clearly diverged. He sends them to a future different from that day. Later, they came to the city. The protagonist noticed that Mist was looking at something and asked what was the matter. Did she want to eat? She turned to him, denied it in a confused tone, and he laughed and said that she did not need to endure it. He went to a food vendor, bought a kebab, and she began to eat it. She turned to him with a joyful look and said that it was so delicious. He agreed and said with a smile that when she looked so happy, for some reason he also became happy. She blushed because of this and said that such sudden actions were unfair. They were walking through the city and heard the residents ask, "Have they heard about the Holy Maiden in the royal city? They say she started training to fight the demon lord's army. Maybe she will visit this city someday?" He looked up when he heard this, and she called out to him and said that she was his ex-fiancée, who used holy magic. He agreed and said that it was the Holy Maiden from the capital. It was quite a long time ago. His skill as a clockmaker is a professional skill. She was surprised. That incredible skill, that's what it's called, a clockmaker. He thanked her and said that because of that skill, the engagement was broken off. They didn't believe in him because he had such a skill. Of course, she didn't either. At the same time, in the capital of the kingdom, Maria was praying in the hall. Raven walked towards her, called out to her and said that she tried hard for her longtime friend. He will also try hard for her, so that she can smile again like she used to. She felt embarrassed about this, and thought with a small smile that they would sooner return from the hike. A church minister ran to her, called loudly to the Holy Virgin, and said that something bad had happened. She turned around and asked in a worried tone what had happened. He said that it turned out that one of the assistants had been stealing. This caught her attention, and she asked if he could elaborate. He agreed and said that this was unacceptable. He had not only appropriated funds for activities intended personally for the Holy Virgin, but had also misappropriated her personal donations. She was surprised by what she heard and thought that she had also instructed him to deliver money and letters for the Cyclo.